So good afternoon once again. I want to thank you all for being here and also those that are joining us virtually for this very special public policy luncheon today. Thank you to TQEE for stepping up and helping us out with this special event today. As many of you know that in our general state conferences, we do a public policy luncheon and a higher ed luncheon. Unfortunately, we weren't able to pull together the higher ed luncheon, but I think this will help take that place. But I have introduce Blair Taylor, who is the director, CEO of TQEE, who will be our moderator. And I want to thank also our panelists, Commissioner Carter, Representative Hazelwood, and Phil Acorn, who are on the stage right now. And in our second group, we will have Mayor Kelly, the mayor of Chattanooga, and Jennifer Andrews with Chattanooga's 2.0. So thank you and welcome our group.
Thank you, Connie. Welcome, everybody. We're so pleased to be here, and especially to our distinguished panelists here. We're very pleased and appreciative that you all have joined us today in this TQE-sponsored lunch. And welcome to those in the room, and also welcome to those of you who are joining us virtually. This is being showcased via Zoom, and thanks to the great folks from Chattanooga State. Really appreciate the AV and tech support on all that. So, and Connie, thank you for inviting us to be a part of this today. We are going to spend about the next 40 minutes with our first panel here, and the panel topic is the Tennessee Child Care Task Force. And then once we have a series of questions and discussion, there will be an opportunity at the end of this first panel for a couple of questions from the audience, both our virtual audience, I'm looking up at the ceiling for that, our virtual audience and our local audience here in the room. And then we'll transition. This panel will depart the stage, and we'll invite our second panel onto the stage. That second panel is going to involve, of course, Mayor Kelly and Jennifer Andrews, and we look forward to hearing from the local leaders' perspective on early care and education. So with that, let me just do quick little stage setting. Those of you in this room may or may not know, you probably, many of you do, that this esteemed woman to my right championed some really important legislation this year that has resulted in establishing the Tennessee Child Care Task Force, and that's what this panel is all about. She is, I'm gonna introduce, just give a quick little bio on each one of our three panelists. I will not do any of them justice on all of their accomplishments, and I'm gonna start with Representative Hazelwood. She is the Republican representative from District 27, which is District Signal Mountain. She's a retired AT&T executive, former Southeast Regional Director for the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development, and Director of Capital Mark Bank and Trust. I also want to say that she is the chair lady of the House Finance Committee, a very esteemed position in our General Assembly. She has served on the House of Representatives since being elected in 2014, and she currently serves as the chair. Well, that's what I just said. So she has a lifelong record of community and philanthropic involvement in Hamilton County, including work and leadership with Signal Mountain Presbyterian Church, Downtown Chattanooga Rotary Club, Chattanooga Area Chamber of Commerce, Community Foundation of Greater Chattanooga, Urban League, and many others. And I'm sure there's gobs more to this bio that we're not going to have time for today. So thank you, Patsy Hazelwood, for joining us today. Next, we have Clarence Carter, Commissioner Clarence Carter, our new commissioner for the Tennessee Department of Human Services, who joined the Tennessee Governor Lee's cabinet in early this year, not too long ago, in January. And he was appointed to serve as a member of the cabinet right in January. The department is responsible. You all, I think, probably all know what the department is responsible for, but it is a lot of responsibility beyond child care. It administers programs and services to support the overall well-being of individuals and families through employment assistance, vocational training, protective services, and programs to meet essential needs, including child care. He has served his entire career administering public safety net agencies and programs at the federal, state, and local levels of government, serving 2 presidents, 4 governors, and a mayor. Mr. Carter earned a bachelor's degree at the Indiana University of Pennsylvania in Indiana, Pennsylvania, and he is enduring he has an enduring commitment to transform the social services safety net so that services not only support recipients with their short-term needs, but also position them for long-lasting self-sustainability. And then lastly, I'd like to welcome to our panel Phil Acord. Phil is a son of Chattanooga, Hamilton County, and he is famously in the news as of yesterday because he is retiring after a 50-year incredible career as the leader of the Chambliss Center of Chattanooga. And expect those of you locally saw that in the paper. I don't think he needs any introduction to most of you all who are local. He's a rock star. He has been a big believer in advocacy and has been involved with and had the privilege of serving as president of 4 state and 2 regional associations. He currently serves on the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation's Early Childhood Education Task Force. He's been the recipient of awards from several child-serving agencies in Tennessee and has a SECA award in his name that honors men working in the field of early childhood. Phil has a BA degree in psychology, and he's been married to Paulette for 54 years. So 55 now, that bio needed to get updated. All right, so welcome, Phil, and thanks to all of you all for your service to our state, to our children and our families of Tennessee, including Hamilton County and Chattanooga, and welcome to the conversation today. Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to ground us in a couple of data points about childcare and childcare task force. And actually, let me first just make sure, when I reference the Tennessee Child Care Task Force that was established as part of a legislative, of some legislation supported by Representative Hazelwood and Senator Becky Massey out of Knoxville, it's called the Tennessee Child Care Task Force, and what it does, its charge, is to create a strategic action plan for quality, affordable, accessible childcare in Tennessee. So there are 15 members of that child care task force. The task force just kicked off this past week. Commissioner Carter is chairing that task force. There are 4 other commissioners of state government who represent departments from economic and community development to labor and workforce development, education, and health who are part of that. And then there are appointees who are appointed by the Speaker of the House and the Lieutenant Governor. And happy to provide any information to you all after this, should anybody want to be able to see that legislation. But the work is underway, and their charge is to accomplish that task by the end of next year. Just some quick research to ground us. Pre-pandemic, Tennesseans for Quality Education did a survey of about 2,300 children, parents of children under the age of 5 across the state, and there were about childcare and childcare issues, and found that 98% of working parents of children said that their work had been adversely impacted by childcare challenges. 2/3 said issues around accessibility and affordability, and 50% cited challenges finding quality childcare. And that was right at the end of 2019, before the pandemic. Since then, I think it's been well documented and in videos and articles and surveys and such that the pandemic has really seriously compounded the childcare, what was already a really dire childcare situation. So to start with our panelists here, I'm going to toss a question first to Representative Hazelwood. With this backdrop, tell us why you sponsored the legislation to enact the Child Care Task Force, and what are some of your hopes for what it will accomplish?
I think the numbers and the information that you provided I think the numbers that Blair just talked about, or actually showed the impetus for the need, I guess, for the Child Care Task Force, and those were pre-pandemic surveys. We all know, I mean, I think everyone who dealt in this area or was an employer or, you know, had any kind of connection with childcare, I think we recognized that there were holes in our childcare system in Tennessee. The pandemic both deepened and widened those holes and made us all more aware of just how difficult the situation is. You know, finding affordable, accessible childcare. I have seen in Nashville, particularly, I would assume the numbers are not that different in other parts of the state, particularly the urban areas, that parents are paying more for childcare than for college tuition. Not that childcare isn't just as important as college tuition, but it makes it very difficult on families if they have that sort of expenditure that has to come out of their pockets. So it's not only the affordability issue, but even if you had lots of money, finding quality childcare where there are openings for your child. I mean, people are signing up their child for childcare in utero. Truly, this is happening because there's just such a lack of quality childcare. And then you tie into that the fact that there's so much more research being done every day, and everything that we find out is how critical it is. You know, we talk about pre-K, we have all these arguments, but 0 to 3, just a huge amount of the brain development that occurs in an individual occurs in that period. So obviously it's kind of important. You don't just need a place to park your child. You need a place that's going to stimulate, educate, all of those things. So again, we already had a problem. Then you have a pandemic. You have a lot of lower wage, very essential workers who aren't able to go to work because they don't have childcare. You couple that with the school system that, and this is still going on to some degree. You have children who are, today they're in school, but tomorrow they might be quarantined, or school might be closed for a day or a week or whatever. So it's very difficult to plan. That in turn affects employment, which impacts the economy. So what we're hoping to do with this child care task force, what I want us to do is look at this situation holistically. I know that there are a lot of resources out there, a lot of not-for-profits, a lot of governmental entities, a lot of employers who are doing things in this field, but that doesn't mean that they're coordinated efforts. So I'm hoping that this child care task force will help us coordinate those efforts, will help us maximize and leverage resources. This is not something that government can fix, whether it's local or state or federal. It's an issue that's going to require everybody working together, the private sector and the public sector. So what we want to do with this child care task force is figure out the most effective way to use the resources that we already have. And that within state government, we have monies addressed child care through lots of different departments, hence the need for 4 commissioners on this child care task force. So it's a very complex problem, and we put a year's time limit on it because we want to get in, get out. This situation is, and it won't be, we're not going to fix it. I'm not naive enough to think that at the end of next year, we'll be able to say that child care in Tennessee is taken care of. But what we hope to have is a roadmap to do that going forward.
Whew, well said. Got a little feedback there. Should I switch mics or turn it? There we go. Okay, how we go. All right, Commissioner Carter, next question for you. So it's a bold charge. And as Representative Hazelwood said, it's not going to, we need a roadmap. It won't all be fixed by the end of next year, but we need a roadmap. Talk a little bit about, there's so many parts and pieces to the child care system. Talk a little bit about what you would like to see addressed. What are those parts and pieces that need to be addressed as part of this task force work?
I want to begin by thanking Representative Hazelwood and Senator Massey for their leadership in understanding the need for this task force and then being the legislative muscle behind it to make it happen. Yes, this is it's a bold charge, but I enter into it comforted by the work that our child care division in the Department of Human Services has, if you would, begun to lay out that roadmap. And we began the child care task force when we met last week of using the work that we have been doing in the child care space to set a foundation that will allow us to follow a course to address the many pieces and parts of our child care system. And for me, what is most important, and Representative Hazelwood spoke to this, This is an issue that is bigger than government, but it's not bigger than Tennessee. And what is important is that what we do is to leverage and align all of the different components in service to a shared vision of high quality, accessible, affordable childcare in Tennessee. Part of the challenge of the design of government is it is built vertically, with each vertical designed to address some particular aspect of the society. And they are designed in such a way that it's as if that vertical is the silver bullet to whatever those issues are. And there isn't a silver bullet, okay? There really is government can be a catalyst to bring together all of those pieces and parts, but the vertical design of government doesn't really work to solve the problem. And so what's important about this task force is, one, there are 4 commissioners that all have different pieces of the child care puzzle. But more importantly, it also has other sectors of the community, so that this task force can be a whole of Tennessee approach to the shared vision of accessible, affordable, highest quality child care. So it is a bold task, but I feel like we are very equipped to be able to address this task by, again, aligning and leveraging all of the different parts and pieces to that shared vision.
Well said. That's a great vision in and of itself. Phil, so piggybacking a little bit on Commissioner Carter's response, talk about from your lens as a childcare provider, you've been in this space for a long time, you know the different parts and pieces of the system, you understand it from an operator standpoint deeply. What are some of the things that you think need to be addressed by this childcare task force?
Well, as Commissioner Carter said, Jude White presented the white paper at our first meeting last week and is very, very comprehensive. I mentioned when I was put on this task force that I served on the task force under Lamar Alexander, the very first child care task force. That's a few years ago. And you know what our objective was? Quality, accessibility, affordability. So, as I'm thinking, here we are, a couple years later, and we're looking at these subjects. Obviously, we've not resolved that, even though we produced a pretty good report, I thought. And, but sustainability, and subsidy probably are the things that I'm hoping the task force is going to look at. And underneath each of those categories, there's, accessibility, for instance. What is accessibility? Well, that's ages. We have childcare deserts all across our state, even in Nashville. Nashville is a childcare desert, believe it or not, because there is not adequate childcare for the demand there. And it's a problem, and it's really a problem in rural areas, but it's a problem beyond that. So when you think about accessibility, let's look at ages, So do you serve infants? Do you serve toddlers? Do you serve 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds? How about before and after school? I'm hoping that the task force is going to look at it from a continuity perspective, and a continuity perspective from the view of the parent. I mean, parents, unfortunately, don't just have infants, or they just don't have school age. They have an infant, and eventually they're going to become school age. So they need services. They need some place where they take their infant and the infant's older sister, who's 4, and the older brother, who is 7. And stop and provide them services. And then they need the hour issue. The accessibility also involves hours. Are you just operating 6 to 6? And unfortunately, with our economy right now and the nature of our jobs and everything, I mean, people are working crazy hours. They're working into the night. They're working weekends. They're working 3 days and off 4. So, I'm hoping that the task force is really going to take a close look at and understand that when you talk child care, you're actually talking families, and you're talking parents, and you're talking economy, because you're talking about the workplace, and employers are out there having to be creative in the way they stay competitive. And we've got to support the families so the families can have productive workers that are out there, doing the job that the employers, which is going to support our economy. So it's all connected. And I feel really good about the white paper. You did an excellent job of laying out all the things that need to be done. There's some other subtle things when you're talking about quality and all about mental health support services. We have a lot of issues and that need to be addressed. And so anyway, I'm very encouraged. And I've looked at the group that's on there. There are a lot of smart people, most of them smarter and certainly some of them better looking than me. So, I'm thinking, that we're going to come up with hopefully a year from now, even though that's a tight timeline, I would say, with a report and a recommendation that hopefully the General Assembly administration will empower and enact.
Thank you, Phil. That's terrific. And Representative Hazelwood, anything you would like to add to that in terms of what you would like to see addressed by the Child Care Task Force? Any component parts and pieces?
I think just to underscore a couple of things that have been said here, and that is that this has to be a partnership. It has to be an effort by a whole lot of sectors. The parents obviously have to be involved, but the business community, I just come back to that. If Phil has mentioned competitive workplace, right now it's very difficult to get employees for a lot of jobs. One of the reasons I contend is the lack of childcare. So I think businesses are going to have to step up and realize that is a real, when you talk about benefits and attractive work environment, that's going to be a key issue. So I think this Child Care Task Force has representatives of that business community on it, and I think that's a key piece. Again, I will paraphrase something that Governor Haslam used to say when I worked for him in economic development. That is, government can't create jobs. It shouldn't create jobs. But what government can do is build an environment that is conducive to job creation. I think childcare is very similar in that government can't solve this problem, but hopefully what we can do is facilitate, bring to the table the people that can look at the issue and solve it. And I think a critical piece, again, that Phil mentioned, as far as I know, and I'm no expert on this, but I don't know anybody else in town, at least, that does 24-hour childcare. And many, many people have those kinds of shifts. Many more might take those sorts of jobs if they had a place that they knew that their children would be cared for and they would be safe and they would be nurtured and all those things. So again, to Phil's point, that this needs to be a very holistic, and I know I sound like I'm asking this task force to solve world hunger, and in the way we are, but that's the task before us. It truly is. And, we do that. We eat this elephant one bite at a time, and we'll start a bite or two.
Thank you, Representative Hazelwood. Okay, this question's for everyone, and why don't we start with Commissioner Carter in response, but TQE does an annual voter survey, public opinion survey, to sort of test policy proposals and to get a sense from the voting public and the residents of the state of Tennessee where they stand on certain things in terms of policy priorities for the state, investments by the state. And we ask them, and each year we ask them about childcare. And most recently, we released our survey results just last month, actually, and found 87% of Tennesseans favor expanded childcare assistance for low and middle income families so that parents can afford to work. And as Representative Hazelwood mentioned, that in recent years, the cost of childcare in Tennessee has exceeded the cost of public university, and some very significant percentage of our of the average Tennessee family's income. I don't want to state it because I think I'll get it wrong and I didn't write it down, but goes to childcare. So Commissioner Carter, tell us a little bit about who's currently eligible for financial assistance with childcare, and do you think there's an opportunity for Tennessee to use our share of federal childcare block grant funds to make childcare more affordable for working families?
So, Blair, let me start with going back to what is going to make me sound like a very one-trick pony. But that one trick, I think, is essential to the problem that we are trying to solve. There are child care assets all across a number of different of the verticals of government. While a most significant share is within the Department of Human Services, but there are dollars that can be used and leveraged out of education, out of community and economic development, out of on the mental health system. So the first thing is that we have to have a better sense of what all of our assets are. And I don't feel like we have a good sense of what all those assets are, because again, our current approach is within the confines of the verticals of each one of our entities. So as we take a step back and ask that very question, okay, we then begin to answer the question by saying, what are the resources currently available to us? And then we can determine whether or not we need additional assets. I am a big believer in that we have the assets that we need, again, if we align and leverage better. Now, the other part of my response here is the American Rescue Act has made significant resources available to help our nation recover from this pandemic. And just in the child care space, an additional $900 million has been made available for the issue of child care, with an understanding of how important this is to the health and well-being and recovery of our society. And so we are trying to put those resources in place strategically. But there are also many other assets across, of course, all of Tennessee government that have been made available for this recovery. So I would say the first thing that we should do, and I think that we can do this through the task force, is let's look at the whole waterfront, see what's all available to us, and then we can align that to the need, and then see where there are holes that we can then fill.
Hazelwood.
Just want to make the point, the ARP, the American Rescue Plan funds that Commissioner Carter mentioned, the $900 million. Let's not get too excited about that, because it's one-time money. Therefore, it cannot be used. We cannot set up programs that are ongoing, because frankly, the state of Tennessee can't afford that. So I think it gives us an opportunity to address some issues, 900. And the other thing, I've been saying this, I am the chair of finance. That makes me really cheap. But I've been telling all of my friends this. It sounds like a lot of money, but $900 million is not going to go as far as it once did. And it's going to go not as far tomorrow as it did today, and the day after is going to be less and less, because we are in an inflationary situation. We just are. So I think we throw around these numbers and it sounds like, man, we ought to be able to fix anything with $900 million. But just remember, number one, it's non-recurring. And number two, the costs are continually escalating daily. Just to be Debbie Downer here, sorry.
I was going to say, spoken like a true finance chairman.
Yeah, there she goes. Phil, you want to comment on the question?
Yeah,
about-
I'll try to balance that out with positive Phil or something like that. I don't know what my title is, but yeah, and we're already looking at the grants that the department have announced and are now available. They were available after October 1. It's going to help us with equipment, it's going to help us with supplies, it's going to help us renovation programs trying to start, that we talked about the child care deserts. I mean, this is an opportunity for people who've been thinking about opening a child care program somewhere. There are funds available for that type of thing now that were not available before. So, we definitely have to address, a lot of the basic issues on salaries and you're right, we're having such a hard time finding staff right now. And at the same time, there's such a push for credentialing. We want all of our staff to have a CBA or an AA or a BA, to work with the children. They need to have the understanding and knowledge of how children develop. And we want to compensate them. So, so we're not talking a state issue now. We're talking a federal government issue. And I know that's being looked at the federal level. But, I hope the state and with these monies are going to be as flexible as they can be. And I know they are trying to do that. I talked to Jude and Gwen and some of the leaders in your department there that's looking at those, and I know that they're trying to do that as looking at what the need out there is. But, we're kind of dying out there because of the pandemic and because of all the issues that it has produced. And we're really kind of struggling, but, I know you've got a wages program, that helps, and that's good. And, we're going to take advantage of that. And I know there's some other things out there that hopefully these monies will be made available to assist us and just upgrading and maybe some bonuses. We need to think creatively and outside the box because we've got a workforce that we've got. When you talk about what the secret ingredient to quality early childhood education is, it's the teacher. It's the teacher in the classroom. I should have known who's here. That I'd have gotten applause on that. But yeah, but it's true. It's true. And so we just got to figure out how to make them valued and how to compensate them. They've got to have a living wage. They've got to be able to take care of their families. We want to take care of them. And I think the state's making every effort, just one-time money, Miss Debbie Downer, to try to make them feel appreciated, to compensate them, and help us on the other side there with the brick and mortar and the renovation and stuff like that. So.
Thank you, Phil. All right, we're going to have one more round of questions up here before we open it up to our audience in the room and virtually. So with that, our final question is around employers. You all have all referenced the importance of sort of all sectors coming together around this. We know many employers have seen this pandemic, as you referenced, Representative Hazelwood, really compound their kind of workforce issues. And many are eager for solutions for their employees and recognize the importance of childcare. So, Phil, I'm going back to you. I've got the order back to you first, and then Commissioner Carter, and then Representative Hazelwood. So, you have worked closely, Phil, with Hamilton County Schools in a really innovative model to support their teacher retention through on-site childcare for teachers and other school personnel. Should we be replicating that kind of model?
Absolutely. Let me say that one more time. Absolutely. This is a contract under Dr. Jesse Register, who was our superintendent at one time. And he came to us and said, Phil, I'm losing 49% of my new teachers within the first 3 years. And he says, and I'm doing exit interviews, and here's why I'm losing them. They're starting families, and they can't find childcare, and they had to choose between being a mother and being a teacher, so they resigned. And the very first person to do that, by the way, was Jill Levine at Normal Park. And she had her son, who's now in college, by the way. She was ready to resign. And he said, what can I do to keep you? And she said, well, let me do a child care program here at Normal Park and bring my son to work with me every day. And he said, okay, do it. And then the school board said, no, you can't do that. And so he called me up and said, Phil, can we contract with you to do that? And I said, yeah, let's see what we can do. And so started our first program there. We have 12 of those programs now in different elementary. And it's very simple. I mean, they're an employer. They have a huge workforce, and it's very critical for them to retain quality teachers. And, so the way they do that is if you're a teacher at Normal Park and you have a child, then you have a child care there. You have that employer, Normal Park, and that principal, provides you this support service so that you can bring your child to work. You can have your family, you can continue to teach. And we charge them cost plus 10%, just overhead, because those employees are our employees. We pay them. We do their insurance and all the workman's comp and all that kind of stuff, and keep track of all that. And we have a director that oversees and gives them support services. And we have one there at Hunter, one at, Red Bank. We have one at Ottawa. We have one at Appleton. We have one at East Brainerd. So this is a great idea. I don't know why every school system in the nation doesn't have or has not replicated this program. But other employers could do that too. Why couldn't you do that? Why couldn't lawyers do that in a big building where there's a lot of law offices or accountants or Blue Cross or something like that? This is very doable. This is a program that could be replicated. And I know the department and everybody else would certainly be supportive of it. So as I said to begin with, absolutely.
So this is another aspect of the one trick that I do. And this aspect is about the role of government. Unfortunately, over the past many years, we have evolved to a society that leans on the government as the principal problem solver. Okay? While the government absolutely has a significant role to play in the health and well-being of our society, one of those roles has to be as a catalyst to bring other sectors to solving the problem. And this employer sector is very significant in that. We have an employer that we are currently working with to build childcare into their operation. And the evolution of that conversation, it began with that employer saying to DHS, will you provide childcare for our labor force? And we've been able to evolve the conversation to say that we can partner in that, but that the employer has an important role to play as a support to their labor force, just like Bill just talked about, okay? Because in order for that employer to attract high-quality talent, that high-quality talent needs high-quality support. And so childcare is an essential support. And we believe that we can partner with employers to be able to make, again, high-quality, affordable, accessible childcare to the labor force, but we need to do that in partnership with the employers, not exclusively through government.
Well said. Finally, just on this topic, actually, the Department of Economic and Community Development has recently initiated a sort of grants program that is, I think, I'm not misspeaking, is meant to really catalyze this kind of partnership with employers. And I think that it goes kind of hand in hand with the Department of Human Services establishment grants that go towards sort of operations and the like, but these ECD grants go towards facilities. So Representative Hazelwood, tell us a little bit about what you think about that, and then certainly just feel free to answer the question broadly about public-private partnership.
Well, we have a couple of one-trick ponies, just a different trick, but I just continue to say this issue cannot be solved by government. We have to have partners in the private sector, and one of the key partners are going to be employers, whether those employers are government or private sector, whatever. And I think another issue that we're going to have to wrestle a bit with on this task force is the changing nature of the requirement for childcare because of remote work. That really came into being with the pandemic. There are a lot of people who are not going to be going back to an office to work, or if they do, they're going to be going like 1 day a week or 2 days. It's going to be some sort of hybrid situation, which makes are they going to keep if they're not going in, are they going to keep their child at home if their child is not in school, or are they going to, it wouldn't seem to me very feasible if my employer has childcare that I take my child there and then go back and work from home. So, there's just a lot of complexity that's been added around that. But I think the economic development grants, I feel the reason is because of something that we said in the beginning and we'll say again, this is an economic issue. If people cannot have childcare, they're not going to be in the workforce. And we are in a situation in this country where we are desperately needing more people to take jobs in the workforce. So this is always, as I said initially, it's always been an important and a critical issue. I think we've just, through the pandemic and the other things that have occurred, it's really highlighted, underscored, big flashing neon sign. We've got to fix this.
Amen. All right. Well, with that, why don't we, Connie, do we have a question or two lined up? Should we start? I'll defer to you to kind of tell us where our questions are going to come
Right
from.
back
We may-
here. Tell 'em
Please
who.
just, state your name if you would and who you're with.
Tina Jarman with Promethean Foundation. This question was about, y'all were talking about all the assets out there for childcare facilities and whatnot across the different spectrums. Is there any way you can put them all in one? Like, I click a button and they're all there. DHS, through the education, all the systems that's offering all these assets you're talking about. Because remember, our directors are very busy. So if they have to search and search and search and search, that takes up valuable time.
It certainly would be possible to map all of the different assets. Okay? Exactly. That's it. Public assets. It would be possible to do that. Okay. That would again require sort of sharing that conversation across a number of different enterprises, but I do think that that's very much something that's possible to do. I think we need to look into that.
Hello, my name is Shayla Abbott, and I work for TECTA, and I also own my own childcare. So I have two kind of the same perspective, but also I'm not going to be negative, Nellie, but I'm going to express my concerns and show you a little bit of reality. So in the past 3 weeks, I've lost around $12,000. And I feel like I'm really trying to make a quality childcare center that I took over just 5 months ago. And the reason why I lost these funds is because COVID is so real with our children now. We are recovering because of all of us adults getting our vaccines. However, children are now getting this new strand. And if childcares are doing the right thing and shutting down classrooms, we're losing funds. And I just applied for this grant and I can't wait, but it's not going to last long. I mean, losing that kind of money weekly, it doesn't last long. So, and parents, they're frustrated and I feel those frustrations. So if there's any way this task force can still fight for these parents and still fight for us, because these quality childcares, they're going to be dwindling down. We're going to be gone. We're not going to be able to hold on much longer. So just keep fighting for us. That's all I got to say, because it's true.
Thank you for that. That is, amen. It's a dose of the sense of urgency here. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder, important reminder.
And I just want to follow up, and then I'm going to get you, that we cannot continue to fund childcare on the backs of our families. And I think this pandemic has really helped us recognize that as well, that we need businesses to support us, because without us, there is no they. We've got to work together. And the collaboration that Hamilton County has done with, or what Phil has done with the school district, that is something that is needed across the state.
Connie, I think maybe you get I was going to say final word. Commissioner has the final word.
I was just going to say, I do think that another thing that we can do in sort of that aggregating information is to find and hold up these kinds of best practices, okay? To be able to shine a light on those practices so that it wouldn't be just the gem of Hamilton County, but that wisdom would be available all across the state.
Amen. All right, I am getting, oh, is there something? There's a virtual question, and we're gonna have that virtual question and answers, and then I think, Connie, I think we gotta wrap it up so that we can get to our next panel with that virtual question. All right, what is it? Oh, you sent it to my phone. You sent it to my phone. Oh, God, now I gotta. Now it's making me log in. Okay, wait a second. Okay, there it is. Face ID. Nope, 62777. All right. Where can we follow the work of the task force? It's very difficult. Okay, these are two questions I see. Where can we follow the work of the task force? Let's wrap up with that one.
I think I would say broader than the work of the task force, we are going to continue to update the DHS childcare website that will have also the doings of the task force. So that would be a place where you can find information related to the task force. And I will make sure to share that website address with Blair so she can share it with the group.
Absolutely. And these all are publicly, will be viewable online as they take place. There's, we'll get that information out kind of to you all through Connie, but they all are viewable online. So if you want to follow the task force, all the materials that will be shared with the task force and provided to the task force and engaged will all be available to the public. So I want to just, please.
They'll
Representative
be
Hazelwood.
online as they happen, and then I believe that they'll be available to go back to and reference as well. So you can watch us in action if you'd like watching paint dry, or you can go back and kind of be able to fast forward and get to the beat of what you'd like. But they will be available, I believe, through the Tennessee General Assembly website and other places as well.
All right, Phil, last word.
Well, yeah, I'm a fairly exciting person, so it's not going to be like watching paint dry. We're going to have some provocative conversations, I'm sure. But I wanted to say that hopefully the task force is going to allow me as a task force member to come back to my community and dialogue with Chattanooga 2.0 and with other leaders in the community about what's being said and discussed and what the issues are, getting their feedback. I think we want it to be a two-way conversation, and we want it to be grassroots to task force members and then back to the task force to digest and discuss and then hopefully, come to some sort of conclusion. So I'm thinking there's going to be lots of opportunity for exchange of questions and issues and concerns.
All right, with that, I think we're going to wrap it up. And I really want to thank all of you, the three of you, for being here today. It's an excellent panel. Thank you for your commentary and your insights and your passion and commitment to this. And we will see you soon. Thank you so much. All right, next we'd like to welcome up our next panel, our two panelists who are our local leaders from the Chattanooga, Hamilton County area. And I'm thrilled to, they're going to kind of come up, and as we transition here, I'm going to do a quick introduction. Mayor Tim Kelly, welcome. Jennifer Andrews, welcome with Chattanooga 2.0. Thrilled to have both y'all here this morning. Good to see you again. Hey, Jennifer. All right, Mayor Kelly probably needs no introduction to some of you in the room, but I know some of you probably does, because this conference is pulling from across the state, and certainly those of you joining us virtually. Mayor Tim Kelly is the new mayor of Chattanooga, just recently in April. And he is a really accomplished entrepreneur and business leader, and one of those business leaders that has really been involved in the civic life of his community frankly from day one, and the kind that frankly inspires me and I think other members of the business community for how we can really make a difference. He was born in April of 1967. So was I. What day? 16th. 3rd. Tim's a lifelong resident of Chattanooga. It will always be his home, growing up in a family that emphasized servant leadership and still before taking office. And this is just, I'm sure, just a top line list of Chattanooga 2.0 which city see is seeds.
Been out there trying to do this for years and years, but we got a lot of progress we can make. I mean, we've only got a quarter of kids here in, I think, organized early childcare. And I think the last number I saw, which still just makes my blood run cold, is that 40% of kids locally are coming into kindergarten knowing their letters and number of colors, and this is our human capital. This is our future. So, we are looking at any number of we use the language very intentionally as came up on the earlier plan. We don't have the money at the local level, to do universal early childcare. We wish we did, but unfortunately, the only people with that sort of money are the federal government. State doesn't even have that sort of money, but and whatever your politics are, I think we can agree that figuring out some way to do it would be a great thing. So my job currently is to do what we can at the margins to expand seats, and we're working on that with Jennifer and others. We have a children's cabinet that talks about this on a regular basis, but at the same time, we're spending a lot of time trying to map the ecosystem. What would it look like? How could we create all these seats if we had the money, to fund them? So we're spending a lot of time and money on that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thanks for outlining so clearly what I think particularly many of us understand return on investment, but I love how business community leaders in particular have really gravitated to that return on investment, the clear return on investment in early childhood education. It really makes a compelling economic case. Jennifer, we know that early learning achievement gaps are tied to opportunity gaps. What do you see as some of the most pressing opportunity gaps for Chattanooga's children birth through third grade? And what are some of the strategies that the Chattanooga 2.0 partners, the Early Learning Task Force, and the Hamilton County Children's Cabinet might collectively get behind?
Thank you, Blair.
Easy question, right?
What are the gaps and what are the solutions? So currently in Hamilton County, only, as Mayor Kelly said, 40% of children enrolled in early child care programs, which equates to roughly 8,500 children under the age of 5. But we know from the report that TQEE published a couple of years ago that for almost 16,000 children, both of their parents work full time. So there's a huge gap there in the number of children who enrolled in childcare and those that might need access to quality childcare. And when I say access, I'm going to touch on things that have been covered. It's a theme throughout the panels for your luncheon today. But access doesn't just mean increasing the number of seats, because families face barriers to those. Barriers include transportation and location, cost, the benefits cliff, and hours of operation, which all the previous panelists touched on. And in Hamilton County, 2/3 of our 3-star quality childcare programs are within the city limits of Chattanooga, and which means that we have a barrier for families who live in the rural outside areas of Hamilton County to accessing that quality childcare. And so the benefits cliff that I mentioned is kind of the concept that families who receive certificates and subsidies to pay for tuition, if they get a small raise, it can bump them out of eligibility for being able to qualify for those subsidies. So, they're climbing the ladder only to find out that they can no longer afford childcare. And just because they got a $2 raise, they have to make that determination of whether or not they quit their job and stay home with their children, or they go back making less money. And I am not saying that you in this room don't already know. Right now in Hamilton County, the picture is the same as it is across the state and the United States, that child educators are underpaid and do not have standard access to healthcare. Regardless of their education or experience, you can have a college degree and that doesn't make a difference. So in a few weeks, Early Matters, our volunteer action team of early childhood professionals in Chattanooga, is going to be publishing a needs assessment report with recommendations on how community partners and local leaders can minimize barriers to accessing quality education. So I'm going to give you a hot off the press preview of a couple of those recommendations that we have. So the first one is envisioning a no wrong door approach. And that means streamlining, supporting families who are entering and navigating that early childhood system. So no matter if your first touch point is a pediatrician or a childcare, mental health consultant, doctors, if you're going to WIC, home visitation, churches, everyone knows what the application process is, and can refer as appropriate families to just make them feel supported no matter what their first touch point is. That's a no wrong door approach. And then the other recommendation is, we cannot locally impact the state and the federal requirements for subsidies and certificates. What we can do locally together, county and city and philanthropy, and target those families who are facing that barrier cliff and approaching it, and make sure that they have the financial support so that they can continue to climb that ladder and still be able to afford childcare. And I'm just going to say it one more time for those in the back. Our childcare teachers do not make a living wage, or as Chattanooga 2.0 likes to call it, a thriving wage, which is what you need to survive, and also what you need to contribute to a local economy, being able to afford going to the movies, and then also being able to pay for a rainy day fund. So even if we created 4,000 more early childhood seats here in Hamilton County, families wouldn't be able to access those because we don't have the local qualified staff to work them. And I know it's the same across the state and the country. And so there are state and federal dollars flowing in, but this is an all hands on deck critical situation that we have here locally for our local workforce. And I think it's going to take county and city and philanthropy and many organizations to remedy and figure out what that long-term sustainable plan is until the federal government chooses to finally do that one fix all. Beyond access, this is my longest answer, Blair, I promise. So beyond access, as we think about opportunity gaps that get closer to that third grade reading, which is TQE is very focused on, it's a very big focus for the state of Tennessee. Another gap that children all over our county face, regardless of whether or not they attend childcare, is the need for acquiring foundational literacy skills. So we know from science that the vast majority of people need explicit instruction to be able to decode words. And if you don't know, coding is the tool you use to sound out words when you're learning read. And so I would venture to guess that most people in this room understand the need for that serve and return interaction between children from birth, that constant communication, and giving children the very rich exposure to lots of different words so that when they start to read, they have that context, they know the definition. And but what we also have to pair that teaching to young children with how to decode words, not just reading to them. And so there's a program, getting to what we can support locally. There's a program a few years ago the Early Matters members brought back from Boston called the Chattanooga Basics. And it's basically a program that teaches anyone 5 basic principles to give a child their best start in life. So those principles are maximize love, manage stress, talk, sing, and point, count, group, and compare, learn through movement and play, and read and discuss stories. And a lot of, our creative discovery museum here, which I think I heard you guys are going to go see that through me, our local library, childcare providers, many of them have adopted these basics as a way to get kids ready with those developmental skills that they need. And so Hamilton County Schools is our local school district, and they're taking it one step further and starting a community-wide campaign to make sure that every household understands the real importance of literacy and what they can do to help foster those early literacy skills in children. They're going to call it See It, Say It, Sound It. So it's going to kind of build on that Chattanooga Basics campaign. And then they're offering the school district is offering free foundational literacy skills trainings to community partners. So there's this alignment across the community. And I think that'll also be a theme that I heard earlier and later on, just alignment community around what the needs are for children.
Absolutely. Hearing a lot today, big theme around alignment and the work that you're doing with Chattanooga 2.0. And Mayor, your role is through children's cabinets and other groups that you're convening, this whole idea of collective impact, and how do you structure all this collaboration and all these people coming to the table? It's I think Chattanooga 2.0 is onto something with that. Now, Jen, you mentioned some bright spots that sounded like to me bright spots, and that my next question is around what are some of the bright spots and examples of initiatives in Chattanooga and Hamilton County that you're working well to improve early learning. I'm going to toss that to the mayor first.
Well, again, my predecessor did a great job, I think, of expanding early learning seats. We got to 1,000, but that's only a quarter of really where we need to be. But it was a good start, and he did us all a great favor by putting focus there. Unlike I think any predecessor here, I can say We've also announced the Community Forward Schools Initiative, which is exciting. That is in essence, the city, I mean, one of the things I ran on when I ran was of course here, our school system is funded by the county and has its own school board. The city went out of the school business 22, 23 years ago. But as far as I'm concerned, the schools in the city are still city schools. So we've got 7 schools in our Midtown district where we've put $1 million in the budget to essentially put navigators in to connect that school with its adjacent community center to try to create a synthesized way a community school, right? So that navigator can work with the principal to connect with nonprofit resources to create wraparound services for kids who may be on the bubble and their families, notably. So, we're just getting started with that. We're really starting with 7 schools. We were hopeful that will move the needle. We are very focused on the big metric of 3rd grade reading level, and so that's going to be the thing we're measuring. I should also mention we just had the Canaan Baptist Church opened the Purpose Point Learning Academy, which was launched, with extra space, adding seats and capacity, and we're hopeful that that's really a pilot program to work with our faith community here to that's probably the easiest roadmap to dramatically expanding early childhood seats.
It's really exciting. That's great work. And you have within you mentioned Mayor Burke and his prior work, but you're taking that even a step further. It sounds like you've elevated that department to a division, or you've sort of.
Yeah, I mean, the city now, we didn't want to step on any toes because we're not in the school business. We do now have a department. We don't have a Department of Education per se, but we're calling it Department of Early Learning, because I think one of the frustrations we touched on a couple of times in the earlier panel, and I think it's one of those things probably everybody in this room is a little too close to see, but there's no such thing as an early learning system like there is a K through 12 system. And I think one of the challenges is for us to try to create that or create the same benefits of it, so we think of it in the same way. And so I think that's going to be the job of that.
Great, really, really exciting. It also just signals how much of a priority it is for you, which speaks volumes. Jennifer, do you want to comment on some bright spots?
Yeah, there's so many in Hamilton County, but I think one of them is that, we have 2 mayors, a city and a county mayor, and multiple municipality mayors who are all committed to early childhood and recognizing the importance of that. When I think about other things, so a couple of years ago in 2019, the now Department of Early Learning made a huge investment in quality curriculum for early childhood providers. And that was over 50 providers they provided curriculum to that was the same that was taught in the public school system pre-K programs. And they provided technical assistance and training for those providers. So in terms of alignment, I thought that was a huge bright spot. And then second, Phil touched on it earlier, but the shared services model that Chambliss provides, not just to schools locally, but to smaller childcare providers that, Chambliss provides that back office support of HR, payroll, et cetera, so that smaller programs can utilize the services and then focus on providing high quality care to children and families.
Great. Love that. Clearly Hamilton has some great bright spots. One sitting right in front of us there. All right. Well, so next question to both of you, and Mayor, we'll start with you. What makes you hopeful about moving the needle on Hamilton County Schools' crucial 3rd grade reading and math proficiency rates? They're 28% and 41% respectively.
Well, again, I think it's focus more than anything. As Jennifer said, the county mayor and I have a great relationship, and we both see the need for this. Again, we started this Chattanooga 2.0 work some year ago, and it's very broad, very ambitious, and a program that encompasses everything from pre-K all the way to post-secondary. It's a lot to get your arm around, right? But it is, I think, the first priority for both city and county government, for the nonprofit community here. So we're all on the same page. And we have, Chattanooga is a very philanthropic community. We've got some great nonprofits and foundations that are focusing on the work. So we're looking really forward, getting in gear and sinking our teeth into it and get rolling.
Exciting. Jen?
So one thing that I've noticed in the 4 years of working at 2.0 is this mental divide that partners, parents, school district have had between early childhood and the local school district. And while I know that there are differences, one thing that a shift that I have noticed is the school district, explicitly recognizing the critical importance of quality early childhood education. And they now have data to back up that of the 60% of children who arrive to kindergarten not equipped with these skills to be successful, of those 60% of children, 89% of them are still not reading on level by third grade. So that's huge to have that data point. And then, so the first thing that makes me hopeful is that our community's collective intentionality towards wraparound services for children. Touched on the panel earlier, but it's not just education, it's health, it's all of the sectors that touch a child's life. And, Early Matters has this access to quality working group, but we also have an early childhood health working group. And there's they focus on physical health, mental health, and nutrition. And there's a mutual acknowledgement among all of the people in that group that each service that they provide is so interconnected to the other. So as we begin to align more of our early childhood services to whole child needs, I think this is going to have a tremendous impact as when children, as they arrive to kindergarten. And once a child steps into Hamilton County schools in elementary school, they're going to get the benefit of individualized student success plans. And this is another bright spot, but also something that provides a little bit of hope for me, because students now have a team of people who are giving them assessments on their social emotional skills. They're interviewing the teacher, the parent, the counselor, the gym coach, and they're creating these customized, personalized plans for children that have what your goals are and what your plan is for getting you back on track academically, socially, whatever you need to be successful. So it's a long-winded way of saying that from birth to third grade, this community is moving towards supporting children like the village that I think we were probably always meant to be. And Representative Hazelwood also touched the importance of this kind of early alignment of services. And so the other thing that I cannot wait to see the impact of in the next 2 to 3 years is the state legislation that was passed this year around literacy. So in Hamilton County schools over this pandemic year actually outperformed the state in terms of reading, which is huge. And they accredit that to the implementation of high quality reading curriculum in their schools. Even though schools were virtual for a while, they went ahead and adopted and implemented this. And it's significant because it pushed the district towards having foundational literacy skills explicitly taught and practiced and mastered in grades K through 5. And in addition, so I think the state legislation is that all teachers have to be trained by 2023, but Hamilton County Schools believes in it so much that they are using their ESSER dollars to pay a stipend to all of their K-5 teachers to have this training by the end of this school year, just so that we can focus on that foundational literacy skills. So I would say that I'm very hopeful.
I feel hopeful for you guys too. That's exciting. A lot of great things going on. Well, why don't we turn a minute here and see if there are any questions that we'd like to entertain from the audience, either here in the room or online. Any questions, Connie?
No online questions. Questions from the audience?
Well, this has been just a terrific and frankly very inspiring conversation with the two of you all. Great things going on here, and terrific leadership too, and what both of you all are doing. Is there any final comments or thoughts that you'd like to share before we sign off today?
No, just thank you. And thanks to everybody involved in this work. As Jennifer said, we need more people involved in this work, and we need more pay for you all. And so that it continues to be a focus that, again, hopefully it becomes a drumbeat here in Chattanooga and again, across the state with your help, Blair, to make everybody understand just how critically important this is, right? I mean, it all begins and ends with this work.
Absolutely. Jen, any final comments?
I just echo the mayor's statements and just thank you to everyone. I have a 3-year-old and a 20-month-old, so I am personally invested in early childhood educators. You are lifesavers, and I'm also just thankful to leaders who are really passionate and invested in this work as well.
Thank you. Let's give this group a round of applause. Also, I just want to thank two former panelists, former panel, Commissioner Carter, Phil. I want to thank Connie Kasha for hosting this terrific event. And she's behind me. She's coming now. There she is. Connie, thank you so much. We really appreciate being here. And thanks so much. See you soon.
Thank you all
All right.
again as well. And one of my final comments about this group was the focus on investment rather than cost. Because if we look at this as an investment right now, we're going to reduce the cost of not doing it right from the start. So let's think about it in that respect. Again, thank you, Blair and TQEE, for coordinating and hosting this luncheon conversation. Thanks to Chattanooga State, again, for helping us with the videoing of this luncheon and conference. And then you are free to go put in your final bids for your items. And if you're heading out to the other sessions off campus, I say off campus, off site here, please meet with your group and do that. Thank you so much.